So from Don Richard Riso in The Wisdom of the Enneagram, the process of transforming the heart could be difficult because as we open it, we inevitably encounter our own pain and become more aware of the pain of others. Does this resonate with your experience right now? In fact, much of our personality is designed to keep us from experiencing this suffering. We close down to the sensitivity of our hearts so that we can block our pain and get on with things. But we're never really entirely successful in avoiding it. Often we're aware of our suffering just enough to make ourselves and everyone around us miserable. Carl Jung's famous dictum that neurosis is a substitute for legitimate suffering points to this. But if we're not willing to experience our own hurt and grief, it can never be healed. I would change that to the extent that we do not allow ourselves to experience our own hurt and grief, we inhibit our healing, to make it less black and white, right? Shutting out our real pain also renders us unable to feel joy, compassion, love, or any of the other capacities of the heart. And again, I would update that to the extent that we go numb, right? And shut out our real pain, we inhibit our joy, compassion, love, and the other capacities of the heart. And also Pema Chodron says, the most difficult times for many are the ones that we give ourselves. And I'm just curious if you can see or feel into a connection between those two things. So what would it take to see clearly and gently, with compassion for yourself, to what extent you might be giving yourself a hard time in this moment? Just sit with that. Allow yourself to wonder. You can pause this and just sit with it as long as the right amount of time for you. What would it take to see clearly, gently, and with compassion for myself? To what extent you might be giving yourself a hard time in this moment? How might you be giving yourself a hard time right now? So notice what comes up, being with this, what you notice, and again, just welcome it as it is. And again, just notice the effect of welcoming it, and welcome that as well, that effect. So if this is challenging for you, but you're finding yourself curious, if you want to practice this more, we're going to continue. We're only maybe halfway done with this inquiry or less. But if this is challenging for you, please know that I am working every day on creating tools using technology to make this easier and easier and easier, to make it more and more automatic, and to bring conscious awareness to these ways in which we go unconscious, to these ways in which we shut down to the full range of our awareness, the full range of our capacities, the full range of our potentials. And so that we can keep bringing more intentionality. I want to be more and more intentional. I want to keep bringing myself to my center here. So let me see, specifically the ways that I fall unconscious, that I shut down, that I shut out my reality, that I close down, that I close off, the way that I become aggressive towards myself or others. And that moment, that shift, that fundamental shift when I allow this whole phenomena, this whole arising, this whole system, this whole range of responses to what is in the moment to just soften and allow myself to center, allow myself to reclaim my capacity for conscious awareness, my capacity for intimacy with the moment, for making contact with my immediate experience, the raw texture of what it feels like to be alive, my capacity for compassion, kindness, gentleness towards myself and others, my capacity to let my actual reality in the moment be seen, felt, and experienced by myself, and to the extent that I yearn for connection, such as with you, to be seen, felt, and experienced by others. And you, I just want to say right now, you're more than welcome. I full-heartedly invite you to share this journey of using technology to create these tools. And I'll put a link in here to my site if you want to try out. I'm sharing these tools as I'm building them, so they're all in process, but I'm sharing them openly, and I'll leave a link in here for you to check that out. So again, Pema Chodron here. Rather than letting our negativity get the better of us, We could acknowledge that right now we feel like a piece of shit and not be squeamish about taking a good look. So let yourself feel into this moment. Do you feel like a piece of shit? Do you feel low self-esteem, weak? Do you feel pathetic? And what would it be like to welcome even this into your field of awareness? What would this feel like? So take a moment, just let yourself feel into this. Notice if there's any resistance that arises, and just welcome that. Welcome your experience, welcome your resistance, and then let go of your resistance to being here in the moment. Could you let go of your resistance to being here right now, in the moment, with your experience? And would you? And when? And that particular series of questions comes from the Sedona method. Another quote from Pema: we think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem, but the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together and then they fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from our letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for our grief, room for relief, for misery, for joy. So in this moment, how could you allow a bit more room for your grief, and through that for your relief? How could you allow a bit more room for your misery, and through that for your joy? In this moment, in your life, just notice what it's like to be with that question. Welcome your experience as it is, as best you can. Notice if there's any resistance to being with the texture of this moment. Just welcome that resistance as well. And let yourself, as best you can, let yourself let go of that resistance. And notice what happens. And welcome this.